Hello, hello, people of the internet. Ian also, can't stop
Yeah.
laughing. Ian also, the freedom astrologer here, sitting with Donny Lim, the astrologer extraordinaire. We call ourselves sometimes the Liam as well, part tongue in cheek, part serious, obviously. But amazing to be here again and doing one of these monthly reviews with you, Donny. How are you?
I'm good. I suppose that duo name that you just said sounds like that candy from IKEA I used to buy.
That is what we were going for. Be
Uh,
relatable. But
That'd be relatable, yes, yeah. So people, when you go to IKEA, when you grab that candy, the one that's chocolate coated, you can think of us.
guys,
um,
so every time you go to IKEA now, think of us.
uh, so relatable, yeah.
Mhm.
So, July has been nonetheless bit, how do I put this? Is full of happenings, but I'm not really surprised as we go further into like the year. I mean, in July we've got what UAE, um, having floods from their cloud seeding efforts, and then we've got, of course, Boris Johnson resigning, and then we've got the Sri Lankan Prime Minister also resigning. I think just days apart. And that's on top of Shinzo Abe being unalived, all in the same week, actually. And not to mention that Elon Musk has got even more scandals coming up with like Twitter and how many more uh, babies that he's got out there. You know what I mean?
That guy
Official
has
ones,
a
I,
lot of
I heard it's
babies.
around 10. Official one is 10. And there's speculation warning. The one with Amber, the one that Amber Heard has, likely to be Elon's because they meet embryos together.
Makes sense. But like that guy seems like a personal kindergarten, like a private kindergarten.
Very Jupiterian because Jupiter and Zeus is a serial seed spreader. He loves to spread his seeds far and wide. So, so
So
there's
maybe
that.
like a god complex there. Okay, I'm joking, guys. I don't know.
Because he did say that like the world is depopulating and he need his own tribe to populate Mars, right? Maybe he's building his own
Jesus.
army.
I hope that's not the case, but
But I think that he's honestly like being let down by Amber because probably he thought that she's quite smart in the beginning. After that, maybe
and
not so.
and now
Yeah.
he has like these genes somewhere. Jesus Christ!
I
What
know,
is
I
this
know.
world coming to? Come on, this is crazy. This is wild.
Um, but you know what? I rectified Elon Musk's chart, and he's got I think 17 or 18 degrees of Taurus as rising. So where is transit Uranus now? On his ascendant, rectified ascendant. So that's why he's like getting so much news on the airwaves. Uranus is
Eclipses
airwaves.
as well. Okay.
That's why his name is like you can't catch a breather without like every few months having his name on some headlines. So
But it seems like he's doing his best as well, like spreading seeds all over the place, and like
yeah.
he's taking the North Node in Taurus very
Oh
like
yeah, no, yeah, 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 yeah,
not
yeah.
spreading the food
Just keep
seeds.
eating, right? It's just the hit. Yeah, just the hit. Keep eating and just go with it. Yeah.
Oh, guys.
Um
Okay, got carried away.
and I would say that keep your eye from what happens in July. Focus on the news on what's happening in El Salvador, Ghana, and also Pakistan. Pakistan in particular, because um, particularly I would say as the remainder of this year actually unfolds, because these three countries that I just mentioned are really that close to join Sri Lanka in being completely broke and defaulting on foreign debt. Not to mention that in July, I've also read news that China has, at this point in time, more than 250 million people in some form of lockdown or restriction still. And that's on the backs of more than 10 variants of the Omicron that's prevalent in mainland China right now. And there's also like the increasing exodus of rich and influential people from there as well. I think you just need to follow the money trail, and also who is actually gaining the span of control over the people, who stands to gain the most from the strict epidemic prevention policies in China right now, then you know like what I'm talking about. It isn't like rocket science. And on top of that, what's going on in China as well, there's a growing financial storm of home buyers. They are stopping their obligation to pay for their mortgages because of unfinished properties. So the financial system and also the real estate industry there are like, in shambles.
There was a bank, basically
Bank
default.
run.
Bank run, yeah. That was
Bankrupt.
pretty
People can't
wild.
withdraw their money, yeah.
Tanks and everything.
And when people go and protest, their health codes get magically changed to a certain color, and then they are dragged to quarantine.
That doesn't sound like a very healthy society to me, guys. And
I never said it is.
no, it's because a lot of in the West, I think it's like the news is coming in and it's just like, yeah, let's put the social whatever it's called. What is it called in China? The social control system.
Socialism.
No, the social control. Basically, the social
social engineering,
social
engineering and control. Yeah,
exactly.
And right now, there are waves of people halting payments on their mortgages, and this has spread to, so far, from what I know, as of July, when we are recording this, to 25 provinces in China, and as of July 16th, the number of developments that have been issued a notice of being forced to stop mortgage payments by all homeowners has expanded to 25 provinces and 286 residential projects across China. Yeah, so the China Banking Regulatory Commission responded by working with the construction sector and the Communist Party's central bank to support local governments in their efforts to ensure the delivery of buildings, people's livelihood, and stability. And on the same day, in middle of July, more than 10 banks, including 6 major banks, a number of joint stock banks, and city merchant banks issued announcements all saying that the risk of unfinished buildings was controllable, inverted commas. True or not, you be the judge of that. Yeah. So for this month, I would say that we start off the month with Mars conjoining Uranus and the North Node and squaring Saturn. And we also have the super long transit of Mars in the sign of Gemini, squaring Neptune in the process 3 times, and Mars will stay in Gemini for a good 30 weeks. 30 weeks is around close to 7.5 to 8 months, I think. Yeah, depending how long it is. So when Mars in Gemini squares Neptune 3 times, as the year progresses into Q1 of next year, I would say do expect more propaganda or mis and disinformation. And I think we mentioned before in our previous podcast that Mars in Gemini is one of the indicators of the monkeypox. And because of that, Mercury and Gemini energy. And the mis and disinformation and propaganda-like stuff, this can even come from official bodies, I would say. And I was kind of disappointed to read from official news coming from the CDC that there's a current particular segment of the population that people are getting highly infected by the monkeypox. And I'm referring to like homo and bisexual men. They're attributing to that part of the population, which I find it quite discriminatory, but I'm not surprised. We're living in crazy times. And Gemini also rules kids as well. So can you imagine when kids, the school terms, when they open and this monkeypox actually spreads to them, who will they blame automatically because of whatever news that was released before? I find that very irresponsible. And there can be another approach to do this. And not to mention that Mars retrograde in Gemini will still be there when there's a midterm elections in the USA going on. So yeah, I don't know what kind of stuff will be blasted on the news, but I just know that it all comes back to the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, when until now the mainstream media, MSM, still want to paint Amber as the good guy, that people are not buying it. And so I can see this kind of more and more inflammatory stuff that the media is splitting. Gemini is the twins, right? So there's this kind of like double-bodied and splitting kind of energy. I do see more fights breaking out online. So if you don't want to read too much inflammatory news, then tune out accordingly. And I just want to share this chart before we actually go on to the next part, which is about the Mars, Uranus, and North Node conjunction, which is right now going on as we are taping this. Zodiacally, they're going to conjunct last day of July and the first few days of August. But I just want to tell people that the influence of this triple conjunction can actually last longer for another like approximately 2 to 3 weeks. And this is because of the declination effect. It's seldom discussed in astrology, but I just want to bring this out to people. And when we see this parallel by declination, it's almost like a conjunction kind of energy. And a parallel right here is like a conjunction, as I mentioned earlier, measured from degrees of declination rather than degrees of longitude. So the North Node and Uranus in Taurus will be zodiacally conjunct. Yes, will be conjunct this week. But if we further look at the declination, by exactitude, these two bodies are parallel, which is that conjunction. It will last for the next 2 weeks, in short. And if we actually look at Mars and Uranus, zodiacally, they're actually conjunct on 2nd of August. But then by declination, they are exact via declination on the 9th. And last but not least, we've got Mars and the North Node, which are parallel or conjunct by declination on the 10th. So you can see this kind of energy will linger for like a good 2 to at least 2 weeks in August. And the triple parallel occurs at 17 degrees of north declination, while the triple conjunction zodiacally occurs at 18 degrees of Taurus. So if you've got astro software or like free online versions like astro.com, you may want to check the declination. If you've got some thing in your natal chart that's 17 degrees north declination, in which this triple conjunction of Mars, Uranus, and North Node will be meeting there. For me personally, I've got my Black Moon Lilith exactly at that degree, north, declination, so I'll definitely feel it. Not to mention that there will be another activation of this 18 degrees Taurus by this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but this will happen on 20th of April of 2024, because that Jupiter-Uranus will be conjuncted at 21 Taurus, so it's very close to the 18-degree Taurus triple conjunction point we're going to have over the next few days. And also, interestingly, right after this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, I think it's on the 8th of May of 2024, there's a new moon at 18 degrees of Taurus again. So another activation going on there. So we will be revisiting these energies altogether in 2024. So this is not just like a short duration transit that we are going to experience over the next 2 weeks. This has got longer ramifications as well. So do you have anything more to add pertaining to this?
Let's say I have a couple of words about July that I wanted to mention, and that we talked about as well. And I do recommend, guys, because we're in that conjunction right now. Now Mars is also obviously entering it, but we mentioned a lot of the Uranus North Node Taurus conjunction in our last month's video as well. So there's a lot of information. Go check that podcast or video out. But now, I think July was again another intense month, at least for me personally. I think for a lot of people, because one of the reasons, and this trick, a little bit of a trick I learned from one of my favorite financial astrologers, is her name is Kate, and her Twitter handle is Profit with the Planets, and their website is Profit with the Planets as well. Check that out. But one of the things she taught me is whenever Mars transits over the eclipse point, it triggers that almost like the eclipse energies again. And especially, guys, if you have something in your personal natal charts in those degrees or on those degrees, which means it was 11 degrees, I believe. So Mars, kind of like re-triggered us as well with those eclipse energies. So I hope you got through those, let's say, more intense energies. I can't believe, it's hard for me to believe that unscathed is the right word, but most likely you're still alive and ticking. And we have another month with the quite intense conjunctions coming up, so prepare yourself, and we'll do our best with Donny to prepare you as well. But use that trick. You can use that trick with any kind of eclipse as well. We have a bunch of eclipses coming. Whenever Mars now transits that eclipse degree, autumn it will transit at the Scorpio eclipse degree. So again, it can trigger that one as well. A couple of let's say mundane astrology viewpoints that I mentioned in the July video that I do my best to keep tabs on it as much as possible. Estonian government got finally formed, like I mentioned in the July video. There was a lot of, let's say, turmoil with will it be formed? A lot of power plays, because there was this last full moon we had was to do a lot about who has the upper hand, who has the actual power. There was a yielding that was like one side had to yield, and in this negotiation that happened, and at least the government got formed. I don't know if you guys are following Estonian politics that much, but it's still something good. Give a shout out, guys, if you are from Estonia actually and watching our videos. I would love to hear, because I'm originally from Estonia, and that would be amazing to hear. Now, one of the other things I mentioned was the Israeli government kind of evaporating in a way. And now the new elections will be held in November 2022. And right now, by polls, Netanyahu is actually predicted to win, and it could be the next prime minister. Like I mentioned, the probability or high probability in the last month's video. we will have to wait and see, guys, still. But right now, like the development seems to be going in that, let's say, road or path. But I will definitely come back to it when the elections are in November. Now, one really big thing is the NATO with Sweden, Finland, and Turkey. So the first news kind of like that came out were good. You know, they found an agreement there. You know that, and again, Turkey used the power card, the power play card, because they won't let Sweden and Finland even join the NATO if they don't do what Turkey wants. Again, a power play being used. Now things are a little bit up in the air because Sweden and Finland haven't yet, let's say, given their end of the bargain. So I'm curious to see what happens. But again, Turkey is holding all the cards, like in that full moon. So they have to basically do that on what Turkey wants, or they won't get into the NATO, which would be which would be most likely not so good for them. What did I want to say about this? I think, yeah, go check our last month's video. I think we will mention a lot of the kind of manifestations here with the North Node Mars-Uranus conjunctions in our full moon. We have a lunation coverage, we have or full moon coverage, we have a new moon coverage. And now I think we are stepping into the Uranus retrograde coverage, actually.
Oh, yes. I think before we actually discuss that, I would just like to bring to the attention of the audience that the triple conjunction that, you know, we've mentioned thus far, the Mars-Uranus North Node, Mars will be the main trigger planet of 2022. I see that coming in pretty strongly. And piggyback on what Ian actually said earlier, transit Mars will actually trigger the 3 eclipses so far, I think. There's along the Taurus and Scorpio axis. And when Mars, by transit, stays in Gemini for that long, it actually triggers eclipses back in 2020, all the way till last end of year. I think that was the last eclipse in Gemini and Sag axis. So yeah, there's a lot of eclipse energy being triggered, counting those from 2020 onwards. So it's fun times. Yeah, that's all I can say. So now let's move on to Uranus retrograde this year. So it's really all about accelerated and radical transformation when I think of Uranus retrograde. So there are certain important dates that I want to mention. Uranus will actually retrograde starting on 24th of August of this year, and it will go all the way till January 22nd of next year, 2023. And Uranus has already entered pre-shadow zone for quite some time, since May 7th of this year at 14 degrees 56 minutes of Taurus. Before he actually turns retrograde officially on August 24th, in the later part of August. So Uranus actually goes direct on 22nd of January of next year, and that's when Uranus actually goes back to 14 degrees 56 minutes of Taurus. And last but not least, Uranus actually leaves his post-retrograde shadow on May 9th of 2023 at 18 degrees 55 minutes of Taurus. So in terms of Uranus retrograde and its meaning, this particular one, I mean, when I think about Uranus, is almost always known as the planet of revolution and also rebellion. It brings change on a collective grand level. Is when we actually break through existing circumstances. But when I think about Uranus in Taurus, actually Uranus in the sign of Taurus is where Uranus is in its least favorite sign to be in, because Uranus is actually exalted in the opposite sign of Scorpio, by the way. But currently, Uranus transiting in Taurus, it can actually bring change around the foundations that we have built our lives on. And Taurus is also the sign of Gaia. And Uranus is to shake things up. So there can be a lot more geoseismic activity going on as well. And on top of that, structures fall, and the way we invest our money and the source of our food is radically different than before, and is undergoing that radical shifts. And relationships evolve and grow in different ways as well on a personal level. I would also say that Uranus being the only planet other than Venus, which is in the opposite rotation than that of the Earth, it actually shows that the retrograde is a planetary slowdown that allows us to understand matters on a deeper level. That's what I get from Uranus retrograde as well. And we will understand why global growth and advancement are important instead of just doing it. There must be like a authentic meaning that's tagged to it. So if I were to look at the key Uranus retrograde aspects pertaining to this year, August 26 is an important date because this will bring a square of Uranus retrograde in Taurus with Venus in Leo. So later this month in August, I think this will really push us to seek freedom in relationships that don't allow us to be our true selves. So we demand more authenticity from our end in terms of the relationships that we have, and that will actually push us to move on to other stuff. And on November 5th, we've got Venus in Scorpio forming an opposition to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So the way we partner and love will be unique and precious over the dates, particularly on November 5th, but you can plus minus a few days here and there. And also we may also want our freedom from those we are in relationships with, which may create breakups and also shakeups in terms of romance and intimacy because Venus is in Scorpio. And moving on a few days later, November 8th, we've got Mercury in Scorpio forming an opposition to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. I think this one will allow us to see and understand things we haven't been able to see before. And there'll be this penetrative, awakening, aha eureka moment that will come to us around November 8th. And by the way, November 8th is the total lunar eclipse in Taurus. And the last date that I want to mention in 2022 is the next day, November 9th, because the sun in Scorpio will be in opposition to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. And this will actually give us the strength to identify the unique individuals that we are and honor that. So in terms of Uranus retrograde, in its effect for the fixed signs, cardinal signs, and also mutable signs, I would say that the fixed signs will feel it the most because this Uranus retrograde is likely to activate their angular houses, first, 4th, 7th, and 10th house. So if you are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you'll be making major transformative changes, and you will have your world shaken up for the hopefully better. And because Uranus is in the slow sign of Taurus, you may not feel it as lightning fast as when transit Uranus is in other signs. So for cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, this will actually activate their fixed houses or material houses, 2nd house, 5th, 8th, and 11th house. They will actually experience thrust in the ways that they feel secure, particularly in the social and financial spheres of your world. I would go on to say that your finances will remain in a state of flux. So will the stability of your alliances as well. So last but not least, we've got the mutable signs, which are Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So this Uranus retrograde actually activates their mutable houses, which are the 3rd, 6th, 9th, and 12th houses. So you won't be, I would say, reaping as many rewards as per the fixed and cardinal signs, or suffer from as major of an aftershock because of this Uranus retrograde season. You're more of like dealing with a change in the way that you process information and open up yourselves up to growth. I think that will be the main theme of this Uranus retrograde in Taurus for you mutable signs. So I would say the fixed signs will get the highest impact, followed by the cardinal signs, and then the least one will be mutable signs. So do you want to start for the 12 sign prediction starting with Aries? Because this Uranus retrograde for Aries will be in their 2nd house if you are particularly an Aries rising. And Aries rising has got Aquarius as their 11th cusp.
I'll say a couple of words, kind of like overview from my end as well about this retrograde. And I want to mention about retrogrades, guys, in general, because we now, when Uranus goes retrograde, we have a lot of planets retrograde. So that immediately means slowing down and going back, because a lot of retrograde energy is about things, people, projects. When we're talking about Uranus specifically, it's a lot to do with long-term goals, long-term projects, dreams, and social economic goals. So a lot of those projects that you had kind of like tucked away, even maybe you had ideas before, these can be coming back during this retrograde period as well. Now, when the retrograde itself is coming in, and Donny already mentioned that we're kind of like in the shadow already, and we're building up to the retrograde. Whenever we're building up to a retrograde, wherever the planet is, obviously the houses rules as well, but I've seen a little bit of, let's say, tiny bit of a more preference of whatever house or sign the actual planet is, the events are usually more stronger there. So wherever Uranus right now, and we're going to go through the houses for you specifically, but you can also look at this, because when we're building up, the results usually come in that area of your life. So very, very potent usually in the week, but I've also observed even 3 weeks coming into the retrograde period. These you can see the energy building. That means the results are starting to show, they're starting to come your way. And now when it builds up, August 24th, August 25th, depending on where you are in the world, these are let's say the most potent days where you have to watch, obviously, and if you're putting in efforts in your life, you're going to get these results as well. Some themes that I wanted to mention, I mentioned already the economic goals and the dreams and long-term projects, but also friends, social circles, and these types of networks are also going to give results as well. And I do see this, for a little while, this being quite a material, economic retrograde in it of itself, because Taurus is a lot to do with material resources, our material stability and foundations, and Aquarius, the Uranus itself, is a lot to do with material goals as well. When we are in the retrograde period itself, now we've gotten the results, let's say. Now we have to work on some things, some of the things that have come back to us. We will decide if they're worth our time, effort, and friendships as well, social circles, networks, like is this group worth my time? Do I want to put more energy into it? All these questions will come. It is about material things, possessions, even like material tangible things that you have in the house. These are all going to be up, let's say, up for a debate. Do I want these? Do I want to get these? Sometimes you will even buy something before the retrograde comes in. Now, working through the retrograde, you're going to be putting more efforts into them. But after, also, this is also important, in January 2023 already, when we're coming out of the retrograde, this is the time all of your efforts, if you've been putting those efforts in, they will start to, again, these manifestations start to reveal themselves. So remember that, guys, it's not something, we want to put some magic dust all over these things of astrology, but it's a lot to do with cycles and how we learn, how we do, and how we actually put in the material efforts. Yes, sometimes it's more internal, and retrogrades are going internal as well, but it's still a lot to do with the physical material efforts we put in, and then getting and seeing the results later on. Couple of more things, because we're still in that Saturn-Uranus square that me and Donny, I think we've been discussing this for a year now. I don't know, it's been such a long time. Some of these themes are definitely, we're building up, so we might see high potential that we're going to see some sort of, again, supply line crisis, some sort of food crisis, some sort of sudden news about food, and the necessity to now change these problematic situation where there's not enough food. Maybe there's supply line even cutoffs, because of the war situation in Ukraine and in Russia. So some of these things, literally have been cut off, and they had to make new deals and agreements. And unfortunately, I see some of the same problems now really escalating, and sudden news coming in there as well. Remember one thing I really want to give you this is, because everything is basically retrograde, almost everything is retrograde right now. This is the reason why you need to be more patient, especially as a fire sign. You want things to move usually quicker, or if you have a lot of cardinal energy even, still you need to be more patient and put in the effort. It's like going back, doing this again. So it's a lot of patience required here. I also wanted to mention financial systems, bank defaults, debts. Unfortunately, I do see similar things happening, which I will discuss a little bit during the Virgo NewMoon as well. Like already we mentioned at the beginning of this video with what happened in China, people not being able to get their money from the bank runs, tanks. Probably this shouldn't happen, that tanks are protecting a bank, but this is the world we're living in right now. So manage your resources, manage your things in the best ways. Now the negative side as well is nature catastrophes, forest fires, earthquakes. Donny, I think, already mentioned the earthquakes and movements of Earth. Especially prevalent right now with the conjunctions and with building up to the retrograde. This is usually the time right now when we're literally building all of that up with the conjunction, with the retrograde, that these events are going to happen. So guys, if you're in a, let's say, problematic area where these things happen a lot, remember this and make necessary improvements. Friendships and social circles I wanted to also mention, because there will be developments with your friends, with the social circles right now, but like Donny I think mentioned a couple of times, there is a detachment energy there as well, and I think it will be this reevaluating these things and reevaluating of these friendships, and almost because Uranus is quite a detached energy as well. It's almost like maybe it's shallow is a bit too dramatic, but it's almost like there's a distance between you, and I do see happening with your friends and social circles as well, and reevaluating those. I think I got everything off my chest now, that we can go into the science predictions.
Okay, so we start off with Aries rising. We'll be covering this according to rising signs. So Uranus retrograde will happen in your second house for Aries rising, and Aquarius will be your 11th whole sign house cusp. We are using whole sign house system, so listen for your ascendant first, then apply it to your sun and moon signs accordingly. So, Ian, do you want to take it away for Aries rising?
Certainly, certainly. So I do see sudden ups and downs with their finances and money and resources. So see money coming in, but at the same time, when the retrograde is building up, I do see you also giving out something or purchasing something. All of a sudden you need to get something basically, and a lot of those material foundations, financial stability of yours will be shaky. It will be a little bit on shaky grounds as well, and there's going to be going money into achieving your goals and dreams as well. Remember, Uranus rules your 11th house as well, and Saturn is squaring from that as well. So it will be quite a, let's say, not as comfortable moving towards these things, and you will be somewhat limited. But like, this energy is about also restructuring that. So how do I restructure? How do I move towards these goals? How do I restructure and manage my resources, money, with these shocks and ups and downs, and maybe sudden changes to my finance? And the last part I want to say is about also your friends, and it will be the social circles, or maybe even the friendship network circles won't be, because there's Saturn there. It can be a little bit limiting you, even not, the help isn't so much there. It will be harder, or like even they will be putting more duties and responsibilities on that you need to work on together. And so self-worth is a little bit to do with as well, maybe not a little bit, a lot to do with the second house. So you will see, like, even the way or how much you charge for your services, or your on the marketplace for your skills, you will be reevaluating, maybe even changing that quite suddenly as well. Maybe lowering, then raising, lowering, raising your rates as well. Yeah.
So for Aries rising, because Uranus retrograde will occur in your second house with Saturn squaring it from the 11th house, whole sign house that is, and Uranus rules your 11th house, whole sign house that is, cusp. I've actually written here that it is time to put your best foot forward and start saving your cash. Take note of whatever credit cards that you have been maxing out, for those who are like pretty generous with spending your money, your own money that is, and take stock of your bank account balance, whether is it healthy. With this Uranus retrograde, you have about 5 months when Uranus is retrograde to get it together and be fiscally responsible by implementing perhaps a new savings plan. Because after all, money comes and money goes. For Aries rising, it's there's very much, I see that of the energy with Aries rising. So it is part and parcel of being an adult. So why not take this Uranus retrograde to do just that, I would say. Yeah. Do you have anything more to add for Aries rising? Okay, so now let's go to Taurus rising. So this Uranus retrograde will be in your first house, and you've got Aquarius as your 10th whole sign house cusp. So what this is telling me for Taurus rising is that your dog days are now over, and it is actually this Uranus retrograde is forcing you to recommit to a former vision. Retrograde is to revisit something, and Uranus is vision. And that's even if your family and friends think you've lost your freaking mind. For Taurus rising, I find that the real you is reawakening, and it's time to let your freak flag fly high. So let your inner weirdo come out. And you're even surprising yourself over this Uranus retrograde with your rebellious attitude that will allow you to quickly run away from your, I call it the humdrum status quo lifestyle, because I know how Taurus risings function. And you may get yourself reconnected to some pursuit of your teenage rock and roll dreams that you may have left behind. So walking to the beat of your own drum won't be as hard during this Uranus retrograde, as long as you lean into your earthy eccentricities. And some of you may also be contemplating branching off to do something completely different in terms of career and profession and vocation as well for Taurus rising. Because of that first and 10th house energy being activated still all the way till end of this year, because we've got Saturn-Uranus square coming into less than a 2-degree orb all the way in Q4 of 2022. So you've got now till then to kind of firm up some plans. And those who want to play it safe, I know you play it safe most of the time, Taurus risings, that you may need time to formulate your plans. Why not take this upcoming 5 months when Uranus turn retrograde to do just that? So do you have anything more to add, Ian?
Yeah, I will say a couple of things for the Tauruses. Yeah, I do see a new, almost like a pressure for you guys to do something of your own, of something new, to almost like liberate yourself, to be free, to be more free in your life and your career. It won't be super pleasant and super easy, in my opinion. There will be challenges and doubts as well of like, oh, can I do this? Can I go and make it happen? But I do see, if you put in like the effort and use that, let's say, gradual movement of Taurus, I think you will be able to do that. And Uranus now will shock you as well into action, I believe. Something sudden can definitely happen with one of the parental figures or bosses now, especially as the retrograde period is coming in. Something sudden, unexpected with them, maybe a new boss, maybe the boss leaves the company, something along those lines. And I want to say, like, I know the Tauruses like to fight against changes and don't want to really change, and it's Uranus has been in your first house for a while now, and knowing Tauruses, knowing you have your the feet very, very sturdily on the ground, and you're resisting that change. But the more you allow it, the more you are able to allow all of these new things into your life, and even like life is pushing you into those directions quite heavily, I would say right now. The more you allow it, the easier it will be. And because remember, Uranus doesn't really care. Uranus is like, this is it. This is what's going to happen. You go either fighting or you go willingly. And this is the things that I see for you guys happening in all areas of your life and career as well. Shall okay, do you have anything, or we'll just move into Gemini?
I think for Taurus, in the end, it's almost like a revamping your image. I see that happening as well. So even some of you may get a rock star haircut, or may just kind of like throw away like your wardrobe and the styling that you used to put yourself together with, and adopt something that's more zany. Or there's more chance of you experimenting as well pertaining to that, because Uranus is also the planet of experimentation to see what fits. So for Gemini, you've got Uranus retrograde in your 12th house, and Aquarius is your 9th whole sign house cusp. Now for Gemini rising, I know that you guys like to play the role of the interrogator because you love to ask a whole bunch of questions. But then when Uranus to retrograde in your 12th house, you'll be asking very intuitively correct questions. So rather than constantly asking a million questions to understand people better, you're perhaps opting over this Uranus retrograde in your 12th house to stay completely away from friends, lovers, and colleagues who you think are shady towards you. And for Gemini rising, I find that when this Uranus retrograde is going on in your 12th house, you're not in the mood to deal with drama and gaslighting as well. You're more happily spending more time on your own in your personal worlds. And that's coming from the 12th and 9th house, both traditionally tied to the planet Jupiter. So it's that space that you want for yourself and, to be alone and all those things. So all in all, I would say that you will live in a very little drama and hopefully drama-free zone during this retrograde for yourself. Yeah. So how about Ian? Do you have anything more to add for Gemini rising?
Yeah, I have a few things, but I love that last part. Definitely. So I think one of the bigger themes that's been going on for you Geminis for a while now anyway, but now this retrograde, or even the Saturn retrograde going on at the same time will highlight it again, is some of the subconscious patterns and beliefs that you might be holding on to. But Uranus now will definitely help you release these things. When Uranus is transiting the 12th house, these things that you have buried very deeply into subconscious or our subconscious, even Taurus that likes to maybe hold on to them a little bit more. Right now, Uranus will make it so that they will come to the surface and they will be revealed, and that the truth, which is also Uranus, will be revealed to you. Now, the 9th house Saturn is a little bit limiting you or making it even harder for you to let go of these ideas and beliefs that maybe they're not serving you anymore. Maybe Uranus is saying like, hey, hold on, like maybe there's a better way of doing it. There's a better way of experiencing freedom and liberation in your life. And this is, I think, a big chunk of what this retrograde will be for you internally. Now, obviously, the challenges can be coming in from teachers, mentor figures, foreigners in general. They can challenge you there, or in a hard way, they can dig at you and a little bit get those subconscious juices flowing. Let's put it that way. And 12th house, a little bit. I want to mention this couple of things. It's almost like the anxiety at times can be there, and it's like you're feeling it. You don't know what it's all about, but this is Uranus, kind of like jolting your subconscious to the freedom and to the openness, and it is a little bit, tiny bit uncomfortable at times. But 12th house, I think, isn't the best or a worst place to have a Uranus transit in retrograde. Sudden flashes of brilliance, ideas. From dreams, if you're open, from spirit guides, from these hidden sources that are available for us as well. But I think here you really need to be open to them, because Saturn from the 9th house is like, oh, was this kind of like a guide telling me these things, and your mind can, and your old beliefs can limit you from getting that guidance into you and accepting it and using it in your life in general. Now, some opportunities, with people behind the scenes, some sudden dealings can happen as well, and I really think I want to say I do like the potential that I'm seeing for you guys here. It has the potential to liberate you from a lot of these older things that you're holding on. So use this, guys. Use this and allow yourself the time as well. Yes, some of these events can be sudden. Uranus is sudden, but it will still take time because of Taurus and Saturn squaring as well. So allow yourself the time to release these.
So let's go on to Cancer rising. So this Uranus retrograde will happen in your 11th house. And for Cancer rising, you do have Aquarius as your 8th whole sign house cusp. So I've actually written here for Cancer rising in particular that there may be more drama with your friends and your emotions will be higher than usual because you're Cancer rising. And perhaps you're feeling the sting of being left out or forgotten by your crew for like social gathering plans. But however, your old school pals will swoop in and take you out for a girls' or boys' night, depending, to make you forget all about your problems. So instead of getting mad and sad, you may want to think about hanging out with your childhood friends. Because that way you can spend time reflecting with those who are your close friends and you won't feel judged as well. So that's the reconnecting with your childhood friends is coming from that Saturn in your 8th whole sign house squaring that Uranus as well. So do you have anything more to add?
I really like that those old school friends, old school buddies, like friends returning. I think that will be a theme for you, Cancer. Like suddenly somebody from an old contact group or network, suddenly out of the blue, is just calling or is shooting a message online in social media or on social media, and that will definitely be a theme for you, and it can be a little bit shocking. Or something happens like literally very shockingly with your friends in general, some sudden news from them. Don't be too afraid of that. Now, do see developments here for you with your goals and dreams as well, and moving towards them, and then there can be a sudden jump there as well. But remember, Saturn is coming in from the 8th house. It's almost like maybe there's a maybe if you're getting finances for business, or maybe you're wanting to do something with other people's resources, it can be right now limiting time. Maybe less money from clients, maybe less money from let's say banks or whatever resources you're using to get towards your goals or dreams, and you're working. Maybe you're creating a business. Literally, this is can be a theme there, or just less money from clients, or a lot work with other people's resources, or harder to get them. Now, what did I want to say? Okay, I also wrote here, foreign and intriguing contacts enter your social circle suddenly, and social media following or fan base can increase and or sometimes decrease suddenly as well, depending on your actions. But hopefully it's the increased part, guys, for you Cancers.
So now let's move on to Leo risings. And this Uranus retrograde will happen in your 10th house, whole sign house. And Aquarius will be the sign of your 7th house, whole sign house cusp. So this one is a, what do I say for Leo rising? So an executive shift at work may actually leave you feeling like you're not number one at the office for Leo rising. But however, you're still in line for a promotion. But now there are perhaps more people in the pool for your boss to choose. This may actually soften your competitive edge. But having said that, over this Uranus retrograde, you will have many opportunities to dazzle upper management with your own gifts and talents. I would say in the end, the gig is yours or will be yours if you believe in yourself more. And the less that you fight and resist the changes that are happening, the easier the process will be. For Leo risings, so do you have anything more to add?
Yeah, I think I wrote something similar here, or a little bit similar. I should say. It's like I do see, quick developments, maybe rapid developments, even with career, work, mission, bosses, even at times. And I also put here like desire to jump hoops in career and work, like this, and like making that sudden jump. Guys, with the North Node also there, it's a little, it's a theme for you guys. But Saturn from the seventh house is like saying like, is it are you ready? Is the foundation set already, or is there something else there that you need to work on? That most likely should be worked on during these retrogrades. And I want to say, like some of these older, let's say, work projects that you're maybe dealing or have been dealing, maybe they've kind of like been in the back burner. Now they jump suddenly in the limelight, and then you need to do and make them happen quite quickly there. Um, no. What? Okay. So, and also, I think one of the big themes here is, let's say if you're working for a corporation, or a bigger company or whatever, working for someone else, like the desire and wanting freedom and liberation there can be really big. But at the same time, again, Saturn from the seventh house is like supping, is like, what is socially acceptable, like what can I do here? Maybe I'm not ready, maybe the clients are not really coming in, etc., etc. Something is stopping you from making that desired leap. But the good thing is it's also like pushing you to do it as well. So these are, I think, the bigger themes that might be going on for you, Leos.
So now let's move on to Virgo. So this Uranus retrograde will be in your ninth whole sign house. And you do have Aquarius, where Saturn is transiting, in your sixth whole sign house. So I've written here for Virgo risings is that probably the biggest shock that you're going to experience is from a colleague or co-worker. That's because Aquarius is your sixth whole sign house cusp. And this biggest shock may come from them because they may not be spending as much time at the office as you do. And they might be the recipient of undeserving financial appreciation for their what you deem as mediocre work. And so your impulse might be to go to your boss or manager's office and demand more money for your own efforts over this Uranus retrograde. Having said that, you might want to keep the vibe in excellent order, or there's another synonym called copacetic, and that's to maintain office morale altogether. And this is a big lesson in how you create boundaries. And this is coming from your sixth house in Aquarius, transited by Saturn, ruled by Uranus, and also partly attributing to Virgo as your rising sign. So creating boundaries become more and more important for you over the next few months. And know that once those boundaries get implemented, it is important, if not more important, for you to keep up with them and keep them distinct and upheld for your own sake. So do you have anything more to add?
A couple of things. So what did I write for Virgos? Abrupt developments with foreigners, mentors, teachers, father figure, changes in their lives that you didn't expect and can influence you as well. Also, a big theme for you is higher education, certifications, new courses, higher knowledge, some sort of those areas. So I do see a couple of ways for it to manifest to you is entering the course. For example, starting to do some course or higher education for you that might have been even thought about before, but now the opportunity comes in to take the bull by the horns. The negative side that maybe I see that I wanted to warn you, but guess with Virgos, I'm not too worried about that. It's like wanting to get these certifications somehow quicker and jump through hoops. No, I wouldn't recommend. I definitely, mostly Virgos are very, very practical around those areas. So I'm not too worried about that. But it's something to keep in mind. And the other side of that coin is I do see something. Maybe it's a knowledge. Maybe it's a teacher. Maybe it's some sort of even higher knowledge that is being bestowed upon you that will help you liberate you from some sort of old belief, some sort of old bondages. Maybe there's something that you've been holding on to in your belief system, and now it opens up some freedom for you in that area. Also, sudden flashes of the future. You might see something that will happen, like a prophetic vision or some sort of that side of things, and opportunities to travel and study something abroad that can come quite suddenly for you.
And I think most importantly for Virgo is to take a breather and have some spiritual practices or routines that may actually help to ground you through this, flux of energy that's coming towards you for the rest of this year into next year. So for Libra rising, you have Uranus retrograde happening in your 8th whole sign house. And Aquarius is your 5th whole sign house cusp. This can get a little bit sexy. So, but I just want to mention that Libras actually have a very analytical heart. And when this Uranus retrograde happens in your 8th house, there's more proneness to explore taboos within relationships. So over the next 5 months, when Uranus is retrograding in your 8th house for Libra rising, you'll be drawn to embrace unconventional ideas regarding love and commitment. Some of you may be even, if you're more adventurous, to open up your current relationship to sexual experimentation. This will actually help you to satisfy your earthly desires, and freeing your mind and embracing your new sexy vibe will be exciting and exhilarating as long as the rules of the relationship are on your terms. You can also control the fate and destiny of relationships that you're invested in or have vested interest in, but only if you forgo societal norms and allow yourself to go out of the constraints that has been holding you back. So do you have anything more to add?
Yeah, I really like that analytical art part. Nice. Well done, sir. So 8th house. Let's talk a little bit about maybe the like bookkeeping and these types of resources coming from others. These insurance matters as well. These can have some sudden developments for you, Libra, as well as even incomes from or money coming in from clients. If you're working with clients, there can be some sudden coming in. Maybe you need to go and give a what's the word I'm looking for, like a return. But some developments around those that matters. Now, I think for Libras, it's a lot to do with also, again, because the 8th house is a very deep house, and these are these very deep wounds that Uranus triggers here a little bit or even a lot. And there is a certain sense of freedom that can come from working with these, and maybe there's some sort of partner or lover or even like a self-expression type thing that you're doing. Maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's a business that helps you to liberate yourself from these wounds. It won't be easy, it won't be quick, it will require time and efforts, but if you do those, you will, after the retrograde actually, you will be more free in those deeper matters as well. And what did I want to say? I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so now let's move on to Scorpio. This Uranus retrograde will happen in your 7th house. And Aquarius is your fourth whole sign house cusp sign, and with Saturn transiting there, squaring that Uranus at the same time. So for Scorpio risings, I would say because Uranus has been going through your seventh house for quite a while, so you may experience some kind of on-off relationships going on that's inconsistent. But with this Uranus retrograde, it could be on again for the moment. And you and your significant other may be spending time discussing and rehashing the past during the next several months. And you'll be hearing firsthand about their personal problems and concerns, which will only deepen the intimacy between you both. And this is not just done through lip service for the sake of it, but perhaps also between the sheets as well. So take this time to really work through any kinks that you have built up to this point from earlier this year. If you can let go of the need for control and dominate the relationship, there's a high chance that it will work out, fingers crossed, for Scorpio risings. So all in all together, there's a lot of reshuffling of your personal priorities as well, what you're looking for in relationships. And you'll be more empathetic to opening your ears up to connect with others in order to hear that side of the story. So what do you have, Ian?
What I wrote for Scorpios here is quick developments with the public, deals, partnerships, and or partner. So sometimes it can mean even an old partner returning. Maybe it's a business partner. Maybe it's an old deal, returning and abruptly. Okay, now it's on again. Let's go. Lights, camera, action, set, do it. And but it can be something. If you're in a marriage or a long-term partnership, it can be something in their lives that kind of sudden shocks you a little bit. A deep impulse to go towards lucrative partnerships and or wanting to be free and wanting to have more freedom in your current relationships as well. This can be definitely. And I wanted to say it doesn't have to be only romantic partnership, because sometimes in business things get stagnant and maybe you want more freedom, maybe you want more free time, maybe you want to do things your way. This can also be manifesting right now for you. Emotional matters, duties, responsibilities from home or with family members, and your own emotional state. Saturn in the fourth house is never like super easy. These can be a little bit, let's say, blocking you, or these safety issues of feeling safe in the world can block you from getting into marriage, relationship, or even sometimes a business partnership as well. So build solid foundations with these partners, and you will get better results as well.
Okay, now let's move on to Sagittarius. So this Uranus retrograde will be in your sixth whole sign house, and you've got Aquarius, where Saturn is transiting, in your third whole sign house. And for Sagittarius rising, I always know Sagittarius rising as the mover and the shaker, always on the go, always exploring things. But over this Uranus retrograde, in your sixth house, you may be feeling a tad lazy and indulgent, and your energy level may not be as high as you previously experienced. So you're perhaps also even surprising yourself by being in the mood to be more low-key during this Uranus retrograde season. It's almost like you're putting your adventures on a wait list over this upcoming 5 months. And no, Sagittarius rising, by doing this doesn't mean that you're basic. You're never basic, Sagittarius rising. It means that you're just mixing up the vibe and energy because you're fiery and you're allowed to change due to your mutable modality of your rising sign. So I think that's all I have for Sagittarius.
So a lot of what I see happening for you guys is happening in the sixth house. So that to me means at work or with people you work with, the workplace. So I do see changes there. Maybe some people leave, maybe some new people come in, maybe something with the people you work with. Or I've seen this. I remember now. It's even like the office space needed to be changed, so everybody had to move to another office space. That can happen with Uranus retrograde as well in the sixth house. Now, routines and health are a topic as well. Maybe you need to shift something. Maybe a new old routine is coming back suddenly. Oh, this starts to work, and you're starting to use that. Wanting and desiring to break free from some sort of bondages or depth that you might have, and sudden imbalance in your life shows itself regarding some sort of daily routines, health, or food, for example. It comes to the surface. Maybe it's an old habit you need to let go and you need to break free from it as well. But here is the deal with you, Sagittarius. It's a lot to do with, because Saturn is coming in from the third house, so it's those thoughts and ideas. It's the things you think about can be here inflicting you or somehow holding on to these let's say not so good routines that maybe you have that are causing your some sort of imbalance in your life. Sometimes it can be, the teammates, siblings, relatives, neighbors, even, something to do with them that they're saying, or maybe even arguments with them. I do sudden arguments I do see here with them as well. So remember that these can be sudden, and then you have to work on them later. Don't be scared of that, guys.
So now let's move on to Capricorn. So they have this Uranus retrograde in their fifth house, and Aquarius, where Saturn is transiting, is in their second whole sign house. Capricorns are also interesting because the thing is that I've written here that a former flame will message you out of the blue and try to ignite the spark between both of you. But knowing Capricorn risings, it may be too late for them to apologize for the past because you're totally over them already. The past is the past. But on some level, you find some amusement in the fact that you're still on their mind after all this time. So Capricorn risings can actually get an ego boost. That's the fifth house there. To acknowledge that, probably I'm amazing. And probably because I'm amazing that, my former flame find it hard to get over me. There's this kind of ego thing going on with Capricorn risings. And I think it's also about acknowledging your own uniqueness in terms of the romantic corner or sphere of your life. And this kind of acknowledgement that you're one of a kind, collectible. So that's why your former flame comes back to you over this Uranus retrograde. And it's about you believing in yourself more. And that's reinforced by that Saturn in your second house in the sign of Aquarius. So how do you see yourself gets a revamp as well over this Uranus retrograde season for the next 5 months at least? So do you have anything for Capricorn?
Yeah, Capricorns, I have a little bit for you as well. So I would say there is an impulse to risk suddenly and gamble a little bit more. But this, unfortunately, there's I would say a 50-50 kind of configuration going on, because North Node and Uranus is kind of like, oh, maybe maybe if I risk it suddenly here, but like Saturn from the second house, guys, for you is like, oh, hold your horses now, Capricorn, and do it by the book, do it properly. And looking at this Saturn, I wouldn't be too crazy with too much risk. Let's put it that way. And I do see like sudden romantic gestures, sudden even desire to express yourself in romance in a creative way in the world. I do see that happening for you. Also, some brilliant ideas regarding business and creative projects. So really look at those. If they come in, write them down, take action with them. The negative side that can be a little bit limiting you is from the second house. Second house is a lot to do with old family beliefs as well. So some of the things that your family history might have believed, or the things that were in your family history, can be stopping you. So I would be taking in the information with, if something creative comes your way, and then gradually building that up. And expressing yourself uniquely in the world. And if an old fling, an old lover comes, that's good as well sometimes.
Okay, so we've hit Aquarius. So this Uranus retrograde will happen in their fourth whole sign house, and Saturn is transiting your first house. So I do predict there can be some kind of unforeseen home renovations going on for you, Aquarius risings, whether it's a broken pipe or a leaky roof. There will be, in some way, shape, or form, financial costs being incurred. So if you acknowledge that your home right now needs some kind of proper facelift that it needs, do consider spending the extra money, because no matter the cost, it's important to give your home the love that it deserves to ensure that this problem never occur again. Just keep the receipts to ensure that you are on the right road to having your ideal dream home. Because happy home means happy life. That's the message I have for Aquarius. So do you have anything?
Happy home, happy life, guys. And I do see for you that, like, it's almost when Uranus is about to go retrograde in the fourth, there can be like emotional shakiness. Are my foundations as strong as they are? Am I as happy? Like, almost this anxiety can come in and creep your way. And also some shifts and changes with home and family members. Like Donny already said, something maybe needs to change. Maybe you need to do a renovation. Very, maybe even suddenly some sort of need comes in. And sometimes even the family members, something happens with them and then kind of like shocks you for a second, and you need to regroup and start making things happen. Now, if your IC is around 18 degrees, specifically around those degrees, let's say, there can be almost like this intense or sudden desire to relocate, or even a need to change homes, or even kind of like move somewhere else. Maybe you're leasing something, maybe you're renting something, maybe the landlord comes in and says, oh, you need to move now, and then you suddenly can't even find another place for you as well. Or it's more like an internal need to relocate somewhere else entirely.
And anything more? Okay, so now let's move on to Pisces, because this Uranus retrograde is happening in your third house, and Aquarius is your 12th house where transit Saturn is going through. What I wrote for Pisces is a bit different, because 12th and third house, this can mean that someone like yourself, Pisces rising, may have been if you have been spreading rumors about your friends, then you have to really take note, because people who have confided in you, it's almost like the saying, like loose lips sink ships. And if you're the one who's been causing or stirring the pot, creating some kind of scandals along the way within your friendship circle, then there's a bigger chance that you may get caught. And know that it's important to keep silent on privileged information, because you're normally a true friend who is not shy to lend a listening ear. I would say that over this Uranus retrograde, the less that you share, the more secrets and clandestine information that you will know. You just have to behave yourself and don't share the information if you want to remain trustworthy to those that you want to remain as friends with. So some precarious situation, you wouldn't want to be caught in that, caught with your hand in the cookie jar. That's what I would call it. So do you have anything more to add?
Yeah, a little bit. So Pisces, so quick, sudden changes with siblings, teammates, relatives, neighbors, some developments with those people there. Innovative thoughts and ideas coming in, guys. I think that's important. Write them down. Even like innovative things that you want to write about and speak about, saying something shocking, and these types of things. You need to maybe a little bit remember not to say anything too shocking. Maybe that's a good thing as well. You decide. Opportunities and desire for self-promotion. And this is an interesting one because North Node is there as well. This actually, marketing, how you sell yourself, these types of themes are there as well. So you can use this actually. But, Saturn is still a little bit, coming in and saying, oh, can I do this? Is it too much? Etc. etc. You need to find a balance there, I think, and use it. Social media is to promote yourself, is to sell yourself as well, and to share innovative ideas. Sudden movements, sudden short trips, I do see as well for you, Pisces. Maybe you need to drive to a close nearby city. Maybe there's an opportunity to travel to a nearby city. Some of these things I do see. Wanting and desiring to learn a new, innovative, strange skill to use as well. And I think it's Uranus in the third house. Maybe be careful with driving, but and Mars is a little bit there as well. At first, be careful with driving, but like general, I do like this for you mostly.
So shall we move on to the lunations? We'll start off with the full moon that's happening at 19 degrees 21 minutes of Aquarius. And depending where you are, this will happen on 11th or 12th of August. Coming up. So when me and Ian actually looked at this lunation, we were both shaking our heads because it's like, okay, there we go again. This lunation actually started off with a new moon on 11th of February of last year, 2021. And when I looked into that new moon chart way back when, about 18 months ago, that chart has got a very tight Saturn-Uranus square. So as this new moon unfolds into a quarter moon phase, and this actually happened on 11th of November of 2021, that chart also has a Saturn-Uranus square. And 9 months later, when we have this full moon in Aquarius, on 11 or 12 of August of this year, we again have this Saturn-Uranus square. And on top of that, we've got the lunation point, in this case, the moon, and also Mars triggering that square as well. Fun times, eh? Fun times. So, and this actually reiterates the Saturn-Uranus square story that has been playing since early last year. So we are talking about all those like supply chain disruptions and also strains on electrical grids from soaring temperatures. But under this full moon that we are going to have, there can be some culmination of sorts. Because it's a full moon, things come into full bloom. But having said that, there's some caveats. This situation pertaining to Saturn-Uranus square is very much likely to persist. And why do I say that? This is because later on in late October to mid-November of 2022, Saturn and Uranus in the sky by transit will be within 2-degree orb to still square each other. And not to forget that the current eclipses will be imprinting this Saturn-Uranus square as well, which will unfold their influence, therefore perpetuating this influence into 2023, into 2024, actually, if I were to be honest. But this Saturn-Uranus square influence, if I were to piggyback on whatever I just said, it will be until middle of 2024, actually, when this influence finally dissipates. That means we'll continue to have like shortages, resource shortages, and all this related stuff, and like into 2024, middle of it. And just a quick note, I actually used the Venus star, the transit Venus star, to look from it from a different angle, and it does corroborate with middle of 2024 that this Saturn-Uranus square influence may dissipate. That is because in April of 2024, there's this chart I flashed earlier in this podcast that I think it's on the 20th of April, 2024. That's when Jupiter and Uranus actually conjunct in Taurus at 21 degrees-ish. So now going back to this full moon chart, so there will still be a lot of Saturn-Uranus closing square matters that will play up. Not to mention that the North Node Uranus and Mars triple conjunction influence is still there. And that's coming from the declination influence in which I talked about earlier in this podcast, which will perpetuate for a minimum of 2 weeks, starting from beginning of August. So this full moon wise, this triple conjunction influence is still there. And to kind of tie in a little bit from that star point, Venus star point influence, right now we are running a 18 degrees Capricorn Venus star point. And the triple conjunction of Mars, Uranus, and the North Node happened at 18 degrees of a sign as well. And is in a very tight trine to that Venus star point that's active in the sky. So this will play into the whole, what do you call that, austerity kind of circumstances that we live in which we have to pay more for crumbs. In other words, that's that Capricorn energy. And not to mention that the Mars and the Moon and the nodes coming in to highlight that Saturn-Uranus square is really pushing us to do one of several things. And that includes to really experience or have that reaction to some form of nervousness that's underlying in your psyche. And that may also bring up over the course of this full moon feelings of foreboding changes, because that Saturn-Uranus closing square really talks about whatever rules that's being set aside before or agreed upon, things have changed. So it even points to some governments may not be feeling obliged to follow through with their previous agreements, be it with international bodies or foreign governments in this case, in which I'll touch on a bit later. So just know that the Saturn-Uranus closing square is about changing the rules, and it's about breaking the rules as well. And this square is also about pivoting. So this full moon, on top of that, Mars, Uranus, and North Node by declination influence still being strong. I do see people finally taking that leap of faith to actually quit their jobs. If you've been thinking about that for the longest time, because of whatever circumstances that's pulling you back, and this full moon has got such a strong breaking free and liberation energy that is crazy. So if I were to summarize, this full moon actually represents a larger, longer unfolding picture that security may be hard to come by until Q2 of 2024. And this full moon can also suggest that we may expect an intensification of already volatile financial situations and systems, with the potential for shocks and unpredictability in the areas of banking, food and agriculture, real estate, supply chain and energy distribution, and rationing as well. It also adds fuel to disputes and wars already that's playing out currently. So around this lunation, in the middle of August, I would say that events can move incredibly fast, with shocking news coming from all sides that may throw you off balance constantly. So it's even more important to remain grounded. And if you think it's already like that now, the pace is about to pick up speed and steam even more as we go into 2023, into middle of 2024. But in the immediate or very near future, do expect more supply chain breakdowns, food shortages, and prices like blowing out of proportion. And with this chart also, I do see crop failures due to bad weather, because there can be heat waves coming up with Mars and Uranus and the North Node in the sign of Gaia, which is Taurus. Blackouts, like what Ian said before, and also fuel poverty due to disconnection, bankruptcies, and also revelations of corruption and money laundering, and inflation off the charts for that matter. Explosions of violence, rioting, and civil unrest are also taking place. And I'm also talking about China, because there's more people going on the streets as well because of people not being able to afford their mortgages anymore for prepaid apartments that end up unfinished. And you have to live there. Yeah, you most have to pay a lot to settle for crumbs, and people are sick of it. So just look at where Sri Lanka is currently, because whatever's happening in that country might spread very fast to other parts of the world as the year unfolds. But having said that, I don't want to be the second Nicolas Stojanovic, be the only bringer of bad news. There's some good stuff as well coming out from this, because the thing is that it's not all bad news. I just want to declare this and put this out there, because this lunation can also trigger massive awakenings and also increase awareness of the issues that we face, leading to some kind of positive action and change. As the system collapses, it will become obvious that globalism, which is again linked back to that Saturn-Uranus cycle, simply doesn't work, and many more people will begin to see through the illusion of it. And this is a good thing, although it's shocking to know if it's a new idea for you. And I would say that many of us under this lunation can find ourselves liberated or freed from a situation against your will. So there's this kind of background pushing. It's almost like pushing you off a cliff kind of energy with this Aquarius full moon. But you can also take this opportunity to break free from whatever that has been holding you back, keeping you stuck or trapped. And there's that lunation and Mars highlighting that Saturn-Uranus closing square again. And over this Aquarius full moon, you may have sudden insights and revolutionary ideas that open up new pathways for you to achieve security and transform your values as well. And there may be unexpected events that radically change your life overnight, as well as new technologies and innovations that disrupt your life in some way as well. So I think my advice is tap into the patience and steadiness of Taurus. Take lots of deep breaths, do some grounding practice, and count to 10 before you jump into anything. Because there can be a lot of stinging anxieties and free-floating nervous energy in the air. That's all I can say. And I've also gone on to look at the tightest midpoints as presented here in this chart. So I'm just going to zip through. The asteroid series is aspecting the Venus North Node midpoint. Juno is aspecting the Jupiter Vesta midpoint. Jupiter is aspecting the Pluto Juno midpoint. Venus is aspecting the Jupiter Saturn midpoint. Jupiter is also aspecting the Mars and Saturn midpoint. And last but not least, Pallas Athenas, which is not plotted here, is aspecting the Sun Chiron and Moon Chiron midpoint. If I were to put all this stuff together, it tells me that there's a sub-theme that's running through this full moon lunation that it suggests the acknowledging of one's worth and really taking the decision to break free from a certain matrix or system that you've been living in. And that's really coming from all this nervous energy or foreboding changes, or maybe you're just reacting to stuff that's being thrown in your face over this full moon, that will ultimately push you to devise backup plans. So a lot of like plan B or plan C even for yourself, to really capitalize on this Saturn-Uranus square that we will be experiencing until the end of the year. So you may be identifying whether your current work situation is personally satisfactory moving forward for you, or you may look at your living arrangements, whether you should stay in the same old place or relocate. Some of you may even be making that decision on whether you want to take on more debt as well or stay where you are. But the main common goal is that you're working towards materializing your ideal personal reality that you want to put fully in place by Q2 of 2024 onwards. And we've got another set of midpoints in which, I don't want to bore you guys, that's involving Chiron, Sun, Moon, Mercury, and another set that's concerning Vesta with Mercury and Saturn. And last but not least, it also involves like Mars together with Vesta North Node midpoint and Venus and Juno midpoint. If I actually put all this together, it is really talking about the Aquarian age. It's about envisioning an alternative future for yourself stemming from the dissatisfaction and austerity that's coming towards you in currently what's going on and also in the near future. So you may take the chance to really take that leap of faith to engage help. And this is done by associating with like-minded groups, since in the Aquarian age, power is in numbers. So let me just briefly breeze through what are the places of interest under this full moon in which I found very interesting. The first one is actually Pakistan. And that's because this Mars, Uranus, and North Node energy that's very much active over this full moon. It is culminating in the sky. That means it's very close to the 10th house over Pakistan. And that's along with that moon and Saturn energy opposite the sun, clipping on each end of the ascendant and descendant axis over Pakistan. What this actually tells me is that it reiterates the deep financial trouble and economic challenges that the country is already in as they're seeking more funding from the IMF. And on top of that, this lunation also highlights parliamentary confusion and irresponsibility for prior financial agreements, which will further exacerbate their financial instability. And currently, the country is really close to defaulting. So their risk for that is at all-time high. And that's together with currency sinking as political turmoil continues. So what I foresee under this full moon influence is that there may be this kind of acceleration of exodus of people from Pakistan, just like what I mentioned earlier pertaining to rich and influential people exiting China as well. Because I do see for Pakistan that the energy of instability may go well into 2024. And I've looked at the national chart of Pakistan. They do have an ascendant, sign and degree very close to Elon Musk, by the way. And so transit Uranus is very much bang on the Pakistan's ascendant point in terms of their country chart. So what this actually further tells me is that the chances of them not honoring existing agreements with other bodies and countries is even more concerning, setting the precedents for other countries in similar situation to follow suit if Pakistan is able to get away with not paying or honoring their financial liabilities or loans with other countries and international bodies. So a major one. The other region that I want to talk about is close by Pakistan, which is Saudi Arabia. Because whatever energy is going on with Pakistan also is happening in Saudi Arabia. But for Saudi Arabia, it actually highlights the domestic unrest that's going on in the country, which affects the economic agreements that's tied to them. Not to mention that under this lunation, we do have, although it's out of sign, but we still have that Venus and Pluto opposition as well under this lunation. And if I were to relocate this to Saudi Arabia, this Venus-Pluto opposition, Venus is rising over Saudi Arabia and Pluto is setting over Saudi Arabia. And the energy, very interestingly, is connected to France. And I've dug through the news and found that energy was the main topic on the agenda between the French President Emmanuel Macron and the Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And that's during the talks in Paris that took place not long ago. And this is seen as a diplomatic rehabilitation of the de facto leader of the Saudi kingdom. And aides to the French president had indicated ahead of the talks with Saudi, the main purpose of this talk is to increase its oil production to help bring down crude prices. And we know that Pluto is really digging deep, right? And Pluto is actually one of the planets that talk about crude oil. And Venus really talks about agreements. So this really sinks in with the opposition of Venus and Pluto. But Venus and Pluto in opposition in the signs of Leo and Capricorn, in this case, over this lunation, can also indicate some kind of backroom deal as well, or agreements that may be going on in the background, or backroom alliances. And this is whilst Saudi is playing into the covering global concerns on resource production disruptions, and Saudi may use this to financially benefit or profiteer from it. And at the same time, they may use, under the influence of this full moon, which is pretty good for them actually, if they want to wield control and power during these times for future agreements and negotiations, if they want bigger bargaining chips on their hand, because they produce oil. So the next one will be eastern half of Australia. Because this triple conjunction in Taurus will be setting for them, and Saturn and the moon will be anti-culminating, which means that it's very close to the fourth house cusp over Australia over this period of time. And Venus and Pluto opposition is in the 4th and 10th house over South Australia over this full moon. What's really interesting is that, if we've been catching up on the news lately, we know that there's a series of floods going on in Australia. So over this full moon, there can be like a setting up of a disaster relief that's needed to rebuild the damaged areas. And I particularly want to mention South Australia, like just now, because on 24th or 25th of August of 2022, while this full moon is still active, there's going to be the holding of the Australian Disaster Resilience Conference in Adelaide Convention Centre in South Australia. Very much in sync with the energies. And last but not least, I've actually singled out California and Arizona because the triple conjunction in Taurus is anti-culminating, which means that it's around the 4th house of over those areas. And this is together with Saturn and that Venus and Pluto opposition energy setting and rising over these two states in particular. So what this is telling me is that there's potential climate calamity that's off the charts over in California and Arizona. This can be heat waves, flash or extreme droughts, or even wildfires playing out in those areas. So people who live there do need to take note and read the news more. And I just want to ask Ian if anything you want to add on top of this, because I think I've blabbered quite a lot to now.
I think you did an awesome job. I have a little bit, but guys, I just want to say some of these themes, they've been, I think, repeating and repeating. Like Donny said, we've been saying and kind of like talking about these similar themes for about a year, but definitely a couple of months. So if you want to look at, similar themes, you can look at our previous episodes, our previous monthly episodes as well. There's a lot of good stuff there as well. And I'll give you, if you're a avid watcher of our show or a listener of our show, I like to do these rapid fires, and I will give you some of my rapid fires or rapid fire for this specific lunation or full moon during in August. And I want to say, astrology works because Elon Musk, we are talking about Elon Musk, and his chart is so much hit, and we're constantly, everybody's just talking about it. It must work, guys. Just a joke, but okay. Full moon. So emotionally, I think this is a really heavy full moon. Just things can really seem bleak, especially considering that applied conjunction to Saturn. So if you find yourself, I'm not saying despair, but almost like incapable of seeing anything positive during the full moon. Don't be too discouraged. Let's put it that way, especially like regarding our societal system, supply lines, foundations, economy, all of that stuff. It can really seem bleak. The masses, people agitated, more riots, protests because of systems failing, food shortages. Unfortunately, I do see, I think Donny already mentioned it, but I do also see it, violence in these areas, these turning into violent protests and aggression. People can be really fired up because remember now moon is being agitated in a square by 2, we can say even 3 or even 4 influences, but I'm mainly mentioning Uranus and Mars here because wherever is the moon, whatever is happening to the moon, this is what is happening inside of people, in emotions, and it's not only emotions, it's it's emotional security. When that is threatened and agitated, people are also threatened and agitated, and this is one of the reasons that, I think we've put so much negative stuff out there regarding this. Guys, it's not all bad. Obviously, this is the birth of a new world as well, in a way, or a new way of being with each other on this planet. So emotional fear for the future, desire to break free from old systems because they are not working. This can take very, very quickly, and a lot of desire to put in new systems of renewable energy, self-sustaining food system, new ways of growing food together. All of these things are on our minds, and we're wanting to do that quickly, as quickly as possible. Now, one thing that can be going on almost like under the surface for us is almost like being scared and not really knowing why are scared for our society, because Moon and Saturn are meeting, and a lot of that is just like Saturn can be just like flat out fear, guys. And remember that when you're like anxious, and then Uranus and Mars, and you're anxious and you're scared and you don't know even why you're anxious and scared, you need to come into the present moment really to make better decisions. I unfortunately do see some nervous breakdowns, guys. So if you're, let's say, a little bit more anxious, make preparations, have support systems as much as you can for you to and like I think Donny already said, like being in nature, like putting your feet on the ground, if you're in a place to do that already takes at least 50% of that off, so you can maybe call a friend as well when you're there barefoot. Yeah, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, walk your children as well in nature if you need to.
Because they take on a lot of it and they don't know how to handle it properly. Now, on a personal level, more hard to believe that our dreams projects will be finished or will yield the results that we actually desire from these projects. More work needed to put into them. Results can come here, but these results are agitated, and you can see the problems. You need to put more energy into them as well. But like the release here is in the moon, in the Saturn, in Aquarius as well. So I think there's almost like nothing else to be done than to continue work. Yes, it will be difficult. Yes, we will have all of these obstacles, all of these problematic things happening to us, but we still have to go. Yes, we need to innovate. Yes, we need to restructure. We need to do that in our personal life. We need to do that in our businesses. We need to do it all, and it will be uncomfortable. It will be anxious. It will be almost like we're fighting for something, and we need to still be doing. We can't be crybabies, really, with this energy. Sudden interruptions with supply lines, goods, services, things might not be as accessible if you want to get them. I'll give you a really simple, maybe you want that type of chicken, maybe you want that type of food, meat, whatever it is, maybe that type isn't there. Maybe it's something more severe already, but these themes will continue, and that will be, like Donny said, for a long time. emotional need and desire to create better and solid, better foundations and organizations in our society. But the thing I want you to really accept during this full moon is the inability to have them right now, because everything is, shaky. We've been saying these words so many times. So we need to also accept the inability to have all of that now. Yes, we can make things happen here and there, but still. Desire to be free and liberated from some earthly or material duties, also can be financial, it can be debt. Have to push forward and work some more. Rules and regulations announced regarding the V situation, the food, the money, and interest rates as well. Guys, if you've been listening to us, we're not saying the interest rate as of now already. We've been talking about this for months and months and months. So go back and look at those. But unfortunately, the interest rates will continue to rise. That already happened everywhere as well. Even the ECB raised the rates, which is freaking wild because, I think it's wild that they decided to do it personally, but okay, I will continue on. Fighting over resources. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is more to do with, let's say, the W situation, and that some of that is already happening. But supply lines targeted, destroyed. Unfortunately, potential here for like fires with forest or like crops. Not only forest, like literally like setting them on fire. Like this can happen with this type of energy. This is unfortunate, and I'm sad to even say it, but the potential with the energy is there. A couple of things, last ones here. Emotional irritation. I see a lot of emotional reactions because of fear, because of the food, finances, material foundations left. That will trigger a lot of people. Remember that when you go outside as well, you're triggered, you're worried. Maybe you can navigate that within yourself. Maybe you're better already. Maybe you can stabilize yourself quickly. But remember, when you're going out to the supermarket, maybe when you're going out to get supplies, other people will feel that agitation. They are getting the news. They are getting all of that energy fed onto them. So it's going to be a little bit of a resource battle there, I think, and an emotional reaction battle there. Now, the last thing I want to say about this full moon is it was interesting. I pulled up the astrocartography for this, and interesting lines were going through MC Moon and MC Saturn line. We're going through Iceland actually. So I don't want to make really precise predictions right now, but I want to see what happens with Iceland, because remember, guys, some of you might remember during the 2008 crisis, Iceland decided to kick out the bankers, the people who were impoverishing their country and their people. And that wasn't, let's say, it wasn't big news, but it was still news. Those who called it and caught it know that Iceland has been doing great. I want to see what happens during building up to this full moon. If we get something out of Iceland, if there's something happening there, I really want to see. And even after the full moon as well, 2 weeks, I will give this definitely. Let's, guys, observe what will happen there. If the people will, I think something will happen with the people of Iceland. Let's see. But I think it's
you reckon there will be a mass exodus from Iceland, like some shocking news coming out from Iceland over this August?
Unfortunately, I see the potential there, because the moon is usually still the people. But in order for us to really say this, we would need to look at also like the natal chart of Iceland itself. I didn't do that this time because there's so much to look at anyway. But I think let's keep our eyes and ears open. I think we will hear something out of Iceland and with the people there that will, like Donny said, maybe it's Exodus, maybe it's something happening there with the people of Iceland themselves. So I don't have anything more about this full moon. I think you went pretty all in on it, and I kind of wrapped it up. Do you have anything to add more with this?
I think that this and the next lunation we are going to talk about, which is the new moon, in which Ian will take the lead on this. Both lunations this month, there's a very anxiety-inducing midpoint picture. And I'm talking about Jupiter aspecting the midpoint of Pluto and Juno. It's active for both lunations in August. And when I see this midpoint picture, there can be this kind of overwhelmed response to things. And it's almost like, to put this in, not to sugarcoat things, that we may feel intense fear and being overwhelmed. It's almost like we are being buried alive. That's how much fear that can be released onto the physical plane in August. So I just want to put it out there so that if you don't want to engage and be in your own cocoon, the choice is all yours, because you can take the power back into really manifesting, because this same lunation is also very good for manifesting the reality that you want, and go ahead and get it. And but the results, like Ian mentioned, won't be immediate. This is because this lunation is tying into a bigger picture, into like Q2 of 2024. So you've got like a close to 1 year, 9 months from now. Everything will need to happen and unfold in order for you to really roll with the punches, to really get to that point of, this is the reality that I want, this is the reality that I'm happy with, to move forward. So I think that's all I have, just to put people, into this holistic mind. So now let's move on to the next lunation, which happens on the 27th.
I think it's like Donna said, it's a lot to take for a lot of people, and then personally, I think for me and for everybody on this planet right now. But like, if we at least know that there's a high probability that these things are going to be like coming at us quite intensely, then we can at least be a little bit prepared emotionally, prepared physically, prepared, material as much as we can. Like, for example, guys, me and my partner, we decided, we started a garden, literally we started a garden, we started growing food, etc. So like these things, and like these things are literally even grounding. They're grounding things. You can use these things to actually ground yourself, because if you're building something, you're planting something, if you're taking care of the plants, these are actually, plants are energy. Plants are good type of energy usually, and you get your hands dirty, you get your hands in the dirt, and etc. So that all of that action grounds, and if you get some food out of it, I would say that's a potential or a good thing as well. So okay, I'll
just to end on the note before we close off this lunation, are you also joining a community, like you grow this, I grow this, and we swap?
Like, I think it's an amazing idea, but I've been here for a very short time. So I'm literally getting to know the people here around me. We already have a few people around us that we know, that we talk to, and I think that's an amazing idea. I think that should be done, and people should literally start to do that.
Power in numbers, right? Aquarius FullMoon energy.
Exactly.
So now let's go on to the new moon on 27th of August, and it will be at 4 degrees of Virgo, close to exactly square Mars.
That is the because I was first I was looking at this, I was like, okay, so a little bit of a grounded new moon. Usually in Virgo these things aren't so emotional, because in a lot of other signs things can be quite emotional during new and full moons, but Virgo is grounded, processes emotions, maybe sometimes too much through the head, but still it grounds the very hyperactive energy that we've been having. But now, then I saw obviously the Mars square, and that is something that will be definitely, guys, unfortunately agitating us. And it's such an exact square there, it will be felt by all of us. Now, I also wanted to mention, because it's a strange one for me, because it's a sign-based T-square. We can say that. I know a lot of people will be not agreeing with me. That's okay. But it's still 20 degrees apart from Neptune, this T-square that we're having. So hopefully it won't be too bad, and the Neptunian illusions and the Neptunian, because when it's in an opposition, we usually get the more negative and harder side of the Neptunian energy. But let's also be careful with bullshitting ourselves emotionally and saying everything is just fine, where it isn't. And I want to mention, the Venus and Saturn opposition as well, because it's here. It's not, let's say, so maybe negatively affecting the new moon energies, but Venus and Saturn. So it's a weird one, because in traditional rules, Venus and Saturn are kind of like friends, even, or like, doing okay at least. let's put it that. In ancient astrology, they were friends. How do I put this? Anything with Saturn in a hard aspect, it's still difficult, I would say. And let's say if we just dissect this aspect first, already we can see, because Venus is a lot to do with food, Venus is a lot to do with money, all of these foundational resources, agreements. When these are in hard aspects, literally they can mean that some agreements are not honored. These will break. Difficulties with money, difficulties with food, limitations with food, difficulties with ration. We need to ration. We need to be minimalistic and plan and organize all of these things. So you can see all of these themes are building into this. And I want to say something else about this opposition, because from an internal perspective, it is to do with our self-worth as well. Venus is a lot to do with our self-worth, and when in a hard aspect, things can not be, because I'm a person who has that exact opposition in different signs in my natal chart. I don't know how hard it is to navigate this freaking opposition some days. And I just want to say that will be, kind of interplaying these internal value issues, the worth issues. How much do I charge? How much am I really worth? Am I good enough? Is my, because it's also in Leo, the Venus. Is my self-expression good enough? Am I putting the good things out there that I really want to be putting out there? And I do see the heaviness of this aspect. Now let's talk a little bit about this new moon in the sign of Virgo as well, because it's not all bad, guys. It's not all bad. One of the favorite things of Virgo new moons for me, and I will share a personal story before I get into the nitty-gritty details quickly. When I went into my spiritual awakening thing, before that, I used to be, not even a little bit before that, I used to be basically a professional basketball player. Although I didn't act professional, I still, was doing some of the things that professionals do, which is play a lot of basketball and do that. So I was physically really fit. But then things happened, and I went into a little bit of a difficult extreme of really getting my body weight and all of that stuff into a very negative space. Then my spiritual awakening came after that, and I really went into the very extreme side of that spiritual awakening, let's put it that way, which is a lot of the earthly things are disregarded, which meant exercise as well. I didn't almost at all exercise. And remember, I used to be I played basketball 7 times a week, which is, competitions, practices, etc. So going from a lot of extremes to the next one. But now, one of these Virgo new moons rolled around, and by that time I was already getting into astrology, and I knew a little bits and pieces here. And one of the weird things I decided to do during a new moon, I was walking in a park. I was feeling, it was a kind of intense new moon, etc., etc. I was feeling the heaviness. But I knew enough to know that Virgo is a lot to do with health routines, everyday, activities. And I knew enough that time. I think it was like 2013 or something. Something crazy, like 10 or 9 years ago. And I literally, in that park, I didn't have my exercise clothes or anything. I just started running. Literally started running. And I didn't know even why. I just felt the urge. I started running. I ran quite a bit that time, or that day. Went home, just literally made some changes to my diet, etc. But that was literally the day, that Virgo new moon was literally the day I got back into my, let's say, after spiritual awakening fitness routine. Literally, after that I was hooked. That Virgo new moon really helped me to develop these new routines, healthier, more balanced new fitness and health routines. And after that, I just kept running, etc. It worked out great. And one of the really good things here with this Virgo new moon is actually, guys, to cut off, because it's squared by Mars, to cut off some of the unhealthier habits and things you're doing in life. These can be food related, these can be exercise related, these can be different imbalances, health imbalances that you have, because Virgo really, especially new moons, it's a really potent time to keep up and start with these routines, because Virgo is really organized and it's a really good time to do it. So I really suggest you to do that. If you have something that you're doing. And a couple of other things I wanted to mention with this is good time to let go and cut off, remember, cut off Mars. Use that hard Martian square energy in a positive way. Cut it off. Addictions. Places where you're giving too much of yourself. This can include work. Maybe there's an imbalance in your workplace. You're doing too much. Because in the ancient astrology, Virgo also ruled, unfortunately, slavery. We still, we kind of don't have it anymore. We kind of do have it in some, we can say, but it is if you're being too much of a slave in some place, remember, now is the time to notice it and then cut it off as well. Places where others are taking too much, similarly. Places where you're personally sacrificing is also Virgo. Don't sacrifice. Put up the boundaries, use the Martian energy as well, let go and move on, build better habits. Drinking, obviously, eating, any type of bad routine that's not working, overworking, perfectionism, I put the last part here, because wherever Virgo is in our chart, we can potentially be too much of a perfectionist as well. Remember that if you have even more Virgo energy, this is a time to let go at least some of it. And start new diets, start new health routines, exercising, and finding balance in imbalanced situations. You will be pushed into it anyway. Mars is the one thing that is pushing you into it, definitely. If you want to, again, let's say, switch the side a little bit, use the initiative side of Mars, because then, like, the pushing side will be a little bit less. You will feel the square a little bit less, and you will use the good side of I'm initiating. I will start the routine. I will start the diet. Okay, and now I want to give a rapid fire of the rest of the manifestations that I do see happening with this new moon in Virgo. Criticism and fighting with words and communication. Quick emotional reactions. Remember, Mars is hitting Moon with a square. Moon is in an earthy, quite grounded, let's say, sign, but it's still Mars. Be prepared for that as well. Anger and quick emotional triggers. Emotions can rise and fall quickly. Emotional desire and need to fight somebody. I do see almost like a imbalance happening here. One side wants to really keep it in check. That's the Virgo side. It wants to balance the imbalanced situations, and now Mars comes in and irritates it, and it's almost like Mars and Moon in a hard aspect. It's like these feelings and sensations and emotions that we usually have, and we can handle and navigate and even process in a better way. But Mars agitates it to a degree of it will be very, very hard to keep it in check. Use the Virgo here, organize. It's almost like organize your feelings and emotions a little bit. Quick daily doings and routines, quick and rapid changes in daily activities, even being forced to change something, new beginnings in these routines. Fighting, because remember guys, Mars is coming in from Gemini. Gemini rules our teammates. Gemini rules our siblings. Even people, like literally, because teammates are the people very often we work with. You can be online fighting with these people. Unfortunately, I do see as well, because because Virgo, the harder side or darker side of Virgo is it's too critical or overly critical, and somebody takes it the wrong way. Again, hitting with that not heavy words, but painful words can be the case here. Yeah, go ahead. You want to say something? No? Yes?
Yeah. Do you have anything more to add?
I have a couple of more sentences.
Sure. Go ahead and finish off your. Yeah.
Have to see where the imbalance is, then take action to fix it. Needing to sacrifice or give up something for the higher good, and fighting with yourself or others before that. you basically, I think you will know it will be best for you, but it will be hard for you to do. I love with Virgo new moons, even full moons, it's a good time to clean, organize, or to give up something, usually the negative side. But I really like when you clean your house, when you organize your files, when you organize everything, it's a really good way to use the Virgo energy. Now some of the, let's say, maybe mundane manifestations. News of debts of countries, banks, imbalances there with loans and debts, like I think Donny has already mentioned a bunch here about Sri Lanka, about China, of these banks we've been talking about. I think here we can see some news and problems coming in, definitely. And a lot of, the problem is the interest rate hikes as well. A lot of countries, even because of that, the liabilities or the payments grow. So again, problems for these institutions and countries. Remember, like I always like to say, like a country is a big corporation in truth, and if you think about it, that you can, like the shift will start to happen in your brain. Disagreements at government levels about debts and imbalances, arguments, blaming each other and fighting with each other. Lots of arguments, animosity going around. What a conflict. Oh, the better approach here, I wanted to say is, again, use the directness of Mars, not the blaming and saying mean things. If you see some imbalance within a team, within a neighborhood, go directly and do your best to solve that. Seeing what you are a slave to, inflammations of the gut, I do see possible here. It's hard to say, what to do, but prepare yourself in a way, like watch what you're putting in your mouth, basically. The Mars square and Virgo can make inflammations in the gut happen. Careful with food and clean your hands. Like, what they do with the, I do it sometimes when I go to the supermarket, the gel that you clean your hands with.
Hand sanitizer.
Exactly, hand sanitizer. Jesus Christ, forgot. Okay, digestive system irritated, and I think that's it for me. that was a lot as well, I think.
Wow. The first thing when I looked at this new moon, it's got a T square involving Venus series, Saturn and Uranus and the nodes. So there's a massive T square energy coming up. And not to mention that we also have an ambivalent triangle, which is that Jupiter retrograde opposing Mercury, which is the ruler of that Virgo lunation, forming trines and sextiles to that Mars in Gemini. What's really interesting regarding that Mars's position is that Mercury actually stationed direct at 4 degrees of Gemini earlier on, before it turned retrograde. So this is like picking up that story of that Mercury retrograde, what actually was going on. And this is the last lunation, if I recall, before Mars actually enters the pre-shadow degrees at 8 degrees plus of Gemini. So this is the beginning of a very long stay of transit Mars in Gemini, a good like 28 to 30 weeks, I think, in total, until next year. What's really interesting to me as well is that transit Chiron is also trining that Venus and Ceres. So this tells me one of several things. With that Ceres and Venus trining Chiron, I'm thinking about, like more crop destruction, because Ceres is about agriculture. And it's a fire trine means that things are going to be hot. And, for countries who are experiencing summer right now, I think it's pretty prevalent that, like crops are not growing as well because of, like wildfires, droughts, all that, all those things. And also the electricity required to maintain them, to make sure they're growing well. But what I want to really talk about is the heightened monkeypox awareness and potential mis and disinformation, even coming from as high up as the CDC pertaining to a segment of the population. I've talked about it in the beginning of this podcast as the main contributor. And this actually can have very serious ramifications in the coming months when transit Mars actually squares Neptune. Because monkey is Gemini or Mercury. Mars is something that, like a boil, it can be pox. Squaring Neptune means it's a widespread disease. So we can actually see this monkeypox thing carry, pick up steam, in the coming months. And this lunation basically squaring that Mars is actually telling me that there's an emphasis on that. But more importantly is to have a more grown-up and mature approach where we talk about such things, because you don't want a segment of the population to be scapegoated because of this. And when you have children, which is Gemini energy, going back to school when school term starts and they all start catching monkeypox, who are they supposed to blame? Like we gotta be more mature in terms of that and not just go into mind chatter or just kind of like on social media mudslinging, which can be Mars and Gemini as well, squaring that lunation point. So I do see under this lunation that more children may be statistically catching the monkeypox. And it is actually what we talk about in the media and also to each other that will be very important under this influence. This new moon influence, that is. And there can be on the macro level, the emergence of very inflammatory Mars, news, Gemini, that rile up the public. That's health-related, Virgo. That can be the seed of it. So there can be more discussions and more disagreements, all those things. And also news articles that may be a bit on the wacky side. So you need to even more fact check things. And when I go back to that T-square of Ceres and Venus, opposing Saturn and all squaring Uranus and the North Node. This is really talking about the continuation of the story of Roe v. Wade that was overturned, because there's new Supreme Court worries on overturning access to contraception, which is very much that Uranus and North Node squaring, the Venus and Ceres in Leo energy. So, even though there's a recent bill guaranteeing the right to birth control, this can still be potentially blocked by the US Senate, which are mostly Republican. So, and this lunation with that lunation point squaring Mars in Gemini, this means that there's going to be this kind of continual actions that's perhaps also schizophrenic on both sides of the political system pertaining to issues as such as well. But under this lunation, because of the Mars being nicely sextile entrining that sextile entrining that Jupiter and Mercury opposition, with this stressful August overall, in terms of the lunations that's presented to us, by the end of August or into September, I do feel on a more collective level that we may undertake important steps forward in our personal plans for the future. That's on the positive side, what it can be, because of the cardinal opposition of Jupiter and Mercury. And then we've got that Mars in Gemini nicely configured into that as well. In terms of the astrocartography or ACG, this lunation is also highlighting the two countries that I talked about before, which is Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. So this adds on to the story of their country's economy and also potential backroom deals that's highlighted here by the full moon earlier in mid-August. And that's because we do have the lunation point in Virgo squaring that Mars in Gemini that is on angles using astrocartography over these two localities, which are Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And Australia also has Mars angular over this lunation. Mars will be close to the 4th house cusp, by the way, over Australia, over this new moon in Virgo. And this can be really talking about their plans, perhaps when late August swings around, to roll out vaccines to be prioritized for gay and bisexual men who have traveled internationally. And this actually ties back to that Venus and Ceres opposing Saturn energy, and all creating that T-square with the tip of the T-square being Uranus and the North Node, because Uranus can mean the queer population. And Uranus is also is a traveling planet as well, by airplanes in particular, so air travel. So do you have anything more to add? Because I think I've written much less for this, and you've done such an extensive job pertaining to the new moon.
No, I'm done. I'm done. I feel like we've both really went all in with this as well. I think we did like 2.5 hours again or something.
Yeah, as usual. This is our usual duration.
The usual. Any parting words? I think I have some.
take note of or do take note and be aware that it's gonna be a high anxiety month. Even with the Virgo new moon, it's still a mutable square between Gemini and Virgo, which can be anxiety inducing as well. And that's on top of the Aquarius full moon. That's a pretty yeah. I won't even say a word. I'll just do this. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, guys, it's like
It is what it is.
it is what it is, and like
Yeah.
we have to find these like as good as ways of getting through this as possible, and I think
But some actually will find current circumstances very motivating to break free if they've been stuck in this rut for the longest time. So there's
with
bright
ev-
sides to it.
with every intensity, there's usually something good that comes even during it or sometimes out of it later on. So use that for these things. But I wanted to say, you know, we talked about Elon Musk, I think, too much, and you know, I think one of the things I want to say is like, you know, good stuff that these people are doing these things, but you know, let's focus on our own things, you know, in our own lives and making these things better and creating better systems
Yeah.
for ourselves as well. And I want to say like a personal promotion as well for myself, because I do have a book out, guys. Lots of work went into it, and I really appreciate if you check it out. It's available on a lot of places already. I think yeah, astrolada.com, for example. Go check it out there. And I think that's it from my end. I wish you a lot of strength. Maybe one more thing. If you're able to talk to the people close to you and say like, hey, this month is coming out like this, and there's going to be a lot of anxiety, a lot of fears, etc., etc. You know, maybe prepare yourselves and your family like this, then you can at least do your best to ground all of that energy together and know that these things are coming, so it's not too scary for everybody. Okay, that's it for me.
One last parting word. So, people in the comments below, you may want to drop a comment to wish Ian a happy birthday in August.
That is happening. That is happening.
That is definitely happening. So, wish Ian a happy solar return, most importantly. So I think that's all we have for you guys. So take care, and as much as possible, take a deep breath.
Exactly, guys. Bye.
Bye.